Imagine this situation. Two learners walk out of the IELTS exam room. Both of them are smiling. Both feel pretty confident about their writing task. They've spent months preparing for this moment. They've memorized vocabulary lists, watched YouTube videos, and completed countless practice tests. A week later, the results arrive. One student celebrates a Band 7 for Lexical Resource. The other gets Band 6. Here's the strange part. They actually knew almost the same amount of vocabulary. So, what made the difference? If you've ever looked at your IELTS score and thought, I know so many words, why am I still stuck at Band 6? Then this video is for you. Because the truth is, examiners aren't counting how many difficult words you know. They're looking at something much more subtle, something that many candidates never even notice. Most people believe that learning more vocabulary automatically leads to a higher score. It sounds reasonable, but it's not quite true. Imagine someone owns a toolbox with 100 different tools. That's impressive, but if they keep using the wrong tool for the job, the results still won't be very good. Vocabulary works exactly the same way. It's not about how many words you know, it's about choosing the right one. Today, we're going to uncover the 5 vocabulary mistakes that quietly keep many IELTS candidates at Band 6. Some of them look completely harmless. In fact, you may have made one of these mistakes in your last practice essay without even realizing it. Let's see if that's true. Let's start with the most common mistake of all. And honestly, if I asked 100 IELTS teachers which mistake they see most often, this would probably be near the top of the list. It's simple, it's easy to miss. But once you notice it, you'll start seeing it everywhere. I'd like you to do something. Read this paragraph silently. What stands out to you? Or did you notice it? Increase. Again, and again, and again. Nothing here is grammatically incorrect. But after reading hundreds of Task 1 reports, an examiner's first thought might be, does this student know another way to describe a trend? That's the real problem. Here's something that surprises many candidates. Examiners aren't sitting there counting how many times you repeated a word. They're looking for evidence that you can express the same idea in different, natural, and flexible ways. That's what Lexical Resource is really measuring. Now imagine another student describing exactly the same chart. Instead of repeating increase every time, they write, the figure rose steadily. It then climbed gradually. Finally, it experienced a slight increase. Notice something interesting. None of these words is particularly advanced. They simply sound more natural. So here is today's first golden rule. Range beats repetition. You don't need to impress the examiner with complicated vocabulary. You simply need to show that you have more than one natural way to express the same idea. Keep this rule in mind, because the next mistake catches even stronger students. They know plenty of vocabulary, but they choose the wrong words at exactly the wrong time. So, we've learned our first lesson. Repeating the same word over and over doesn't help your score. Naturally, many students think, easy, I'll just replace every word with a more advanced one. Sounds like a smart solution, right? Well, that's exactly where our second student made an even bigger mistake. Let's meet Alex again. After learning that repetition was a problem, Alex decided to make his writing sound more impressive. He replaced simple words with words like skyrocket, plummet, soar, and surge. Surely that would impress the examiner, wouldn't it? Let's test your examiner instincts again. Imagine you read this sentence. The percentage skyrocketed from 20% to 22%. At first glance, it sounds sophisticated, but don't focus on the vocabulary. Focus on the data. Do those numbers really look like they skyrocketed? Take a second and decide before we reveal the answer. The answer is not really. The word skyrocket isn't just another way of saying increase. It carries a very specific meaning. It suggests a dramatic, rapid, almost explosive rise. But a change from 20 to 22%? That's actually quite small. So here's the real question. What happens when your vocabulary sounds more dramatic than the data itself? Now compare it with this version. The percentage increased slightly from 20% to 22%. Is it less exciting? Absolutely. But is it more accurate? 100%. And in IELTS writing, accuracy beats drama every single time. Let's see if you've started thinking like an examiner. Here's another sentence. The figure plummeted from 50 to 48. This time, I won't tell you the answer. You tell me. Does that sound like a plummet or just a small decrease? If you answered a small decrease, you're already avoiding one of the most common vocabulary mistakes. That brings us to today's second golden rule. Accuracy beats complexity. Instead of saying, the number plummeted from 50 to 48, say, the figure decreased slightly from 58 to 48, or the figure experienced a slight decline. A simple word used correctly is always stronger than an advanced word used incorrectly. Remember, vocabulary is not decoration. So far, we've talked about choosing the right word. But what if you choose the right word in the wrong form? Surprisingly, that's another mistake examiners notice almost immediately. And unlike mistake number 2, this one can happen even if your vocabulary is excellent. Imagine learning the word dramatic. You know what it means, you know when to use it. Everything seems fine. Then, on exam day, you write, the unemployment increased dramatic. Just one missing ending, one tiny mistake. Yet it completely changes the sentence. So, why does such a small detail matter so much? Let's find out. Here's a habit that separates stronger candidates from everyone else. They don't just learn one word, they learn the entire family. For example, increase, increasing, increased, increasingly. Once you know how each form works, writing becomes much more natural. But vocabulary isn't just about individual words. It's also about choosing the right style. This takes us to mistake number 4, using informal vocabulary. Imagine you're writing an email to your best friend. You might say, lots of people, kids, got bigger. Those are perfectly natural. But IELTS writing isn't an email. It's an academic report. And that changes everything. Therefore, try to use formal words like a large number of people increased, decreased, a significant number of, or children instead of kids. Look at these two expressions. They mean almost exactly the same thing. Yet one sounds like casual conversation, while the other sounds appropriate for an academic report. Examiners notice that difference immediately. It's not about using more difficult English. It's about choosing language that fits the situation. That brings us to another golden rule. Academic writing should sound academic. Keep your style consistent from beginning to end. Because even excellent vocabulary loses its impact if the overall tone feels too informal. But we're not finished yet. That is, learning word in isolation. Imagine you learn the word increase. Great. But what usually comes next? That's where collocations come in. Native speakers don't choose words one by one. They naturally combine them into phrases. And that's exactly what examiners expect to see. Instead of memorizing isolated words, try memorizing useful combinations. Reached a peak, remained stable. Experienced a decline, stood at, accounted for. These phrases appear again and again in high-scoring Task 1 reports. And once they become automatic, your writing becomes smoother and much more natural. Let's see how far Alex has come. At the beginning of this lesson, he repeated words, exaggerated small changes, used the wrong word forms, sounded too informal, and memorized words without learning collocations. One by one, he fixed each mistake. And here's the important part. None of these improvements required hundreds of new vocabulary words. They simply required better choices. Before you leave, I have a challenge for you. Imagine you're describing a chart where the numbers rise several times. How many different ways can you describe those increases without repeating the same word? Write your answer in the comments below. I genuinely love to see what you come up with. If today's lesson changed the way you think about vocabulary, there's one more thing I'd like you to remember. IELTS isn't about sounding smarter. It's about communicating more precisely. Thank you for spending these few minutes with me. In the next lesson, we'll uncover 5 grammar mistakes that quietly keep many candidates from reaching Band 7. Until then, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next video. Imagine this